Basically, I was born in Milne Bay, 1959. But my father was a carpenter. We moved to Madang, and while we were in Madang in '65, uh, Dad was recruited to go and by the Nazarene Church to go and build a hospital in Jiwaka, at Kudjip. So I moved to Kudjip when '65. I was 6 years old. And I basically, my parents lived there till about 70, I think, 1970. So they lived there for 5 years, built that hospital in Kudjip. And during that time, I did all my primary school at Bands in Jiwaka. So I did grade 1 and grade 6 at Bands. My parents then moved back to Milne Bay with my two sisters at the time and my younger brother. But I stayed on. I was taken by the missionaries at the Nazarene Church, and they sponsored my high school education at Ukurampa in Kainantu. So I was sitting down there and did all my high school there to an American system from grade 7 to year 12. So I graduated from Ukurampa in 1976. Of course, had no money, but I was able to do SAT college entrance exams and was accepted in a college in Texas, Laterno College, to study aviation, but because we were mission funded, no got money. So I ended up back in Hagen. When I finished high school, I went back to Hagen at the end of 1976 to work at Warakum as a tow truck driver for Highway Motors. And while I was there, unbeknownst to me, my American parents saw an ad in the paper, the Post Courier, for pilots, cadets with CAA at the time through an Australian ADB, it's an Australian development program. Applied for me and I got accepted. I had to go for the interviews. I went down to Leh, stayed at the Melanesian Hotel, did the first time in a hotel for me, did the interviews, and I was successful. So in early 1977, January 1977, got my first passport ever and left the country with likes of Francis Pornellon, Joe Comasi, Simon Nawa, Martin Lennox, and a few other guys. We went down to Cessnock in just Newcastle, just north of Sydney, to do our flying training. So that was the beginning of 1977. 1 year later, April 1978, we all got our commercial licenses, pilot licenses, came back and joined Air Niugini on April the 4th, 1978. And we were all destined to we became first officers on the Fokker Friendship. We had to go to Manila. We did our first simulator sessions in Manila on the Fokker Friendship with Philippine Airlines. Came back, qualified, and I spent the next 8 months or so based out of Rabaul, flying the Fokker Friendship out of Rabaul. Loved every minute of it. I was up there doing the New Guinea Islands run, coming down here. And after 1 year, at the beginning of 1979, it was, Air Niugini had a program that they used to send cadets out to general aviation to do a 3-year command training or flying in the bush for 3 years before they returned to become captains in Air Niugini. They asked for volunteers, and Captain Lepagure, myself, and the late Makita Vinke, 3 of us, put our hands up. So we were sent out to Talair in mid-79, I think it was. I got the short straw because I ended up flying a Cessna 206 out of Daru. Lekwa was flying a Cessna 206, I think, out of Madang, and Umake got Wiwak. I then spent the next 3 years flying for Talair, based out of Daru. Then I went to Tabubil for 6 months. And I was based in Kundiawa in Chimbu on the Islander for 6 months. And I flew the Islander out of Papundera, out of Girawa, doing all the Owen Stanley runs for 6 months. And I went to Hoskins and I flew the Beach Baron out of Hoskins, doing all the New Guinea Islands runs for Talair. Talair was a fantastic company, and I think it did a lot for Papua New Guinea. It was the best thing that could have happened to a rural, at the time, it's what developed rural PNG. 18 bases and I think about 60 or 70 airplanes. We had pilots that we were flying in every corner of Papua New Guinea, and I was just sharing with Malum that we used to have a Gov Charter Day on every Wednesday. The government basically owned one airplane in each base, and that airplane would do all the government work, which is moving teachers, policemen, agriculture officers, doctors, nurses, medicine, pay runs, whatever was required by the government. They would tell us what to do, and we would just go and do it. I think they were paying a lump sum to the company, but it got the rural services to where to a good standard that people actually were happy to stay at home because they had good health services, they had good education services, and they could run their businesses, they could run their whatever they need to do in their own villages, and the government was looking after them. Something that's lacking now, unfortunately. So anyway, Talair, that was part of my life in Talair. Something I learned. After 3 years in Talair, I did my ATPL exams, which we had to do on our own. They told us you had to pay your own way to Australia. I went on holidays to Australia, did my exams, came back, and they offered me a -7 command. So I flew the -7, 4-engine -7 as the captain. I don't think of the years now, but that would have been 1982, I think, 82 or 83.
So you must have been one of the first captains on the -7 after the late Jiwaka.
No, it was Leko. Leko was the first. I think I was the second national. Leko went on to the Fokker after a year, and then I became the first instructor, the first Papua New Guinea instructor. I stayed back on the -7 and became an instructor. So I was teaching pilots to fly the -7.
Can you go ahead with the story?
Yep.
You were flying the
And then,
-7.
so I was flying that -7, and then I for 3 years, so 83, 86, something like that, I went on to the 86, 85, I think. 85, I went to the Fokker, and I flew the Fokker for only 18 months, till July 87. I love that airplane. And the network was all over Papua New Guinea, of course. It was a smaller Fokker than the one we have today. It was a 70-seater, but it was well maintained, and the airports were well maintained, something which I've found different now. I fly the 737 now for Air Niugini, and I find that all the facilities that we used to fly to when I was flying the Fokker have been degraded, to be honest, which is a bit sad. I'll come to that later. So we flew the Fokker for a year and a half. In July, I was asked to go onto the Airbus. So I left domestic operation and flew the Airbus A380B4. Captain Gure, Leko was already captain then. I went on as the first officer, and I flew it for a year, the first year and a half, I think, as the first officer. We did the first international flight with all PNG crew. This aircraft had a flight engineer, so Eddie Matani was the engineer, Leko was the captain, I was the first officer, and we had all the cabin crew were from Papua New Guinea. Did a Brisbane to Moresby flights, I think it was in 1988, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think Captain Gure gave me a picture.
Yeah, we got that picture there. But that was the first time an all PNG crew flew an international flight. So proud moment of all of our lives. Shortly after that, Air Niugini bought 2 A310s, Airbus 310s. So we all went to Toulouse in France, to the Airbus factory, and did the course. I was there. I went on one of the first courses with Leko, and I helped deliver the first, I think the first one, or the second one, I can't remember, back to PNG. We flew it back we flew these airplanes brand new from Toulouse via Bahrain back to Singapore and down here. And so I was captain on the 310 from about 88 to 91. In fact, I was I was an instructor on the 310, training pilots. So that was in 1991. I'd done 13 years. I joined in 1978. It was 1991. I'd done including 3 years in Talair. And then we had 2 aircraft, two A310s. And we didn't have the work for 2 A310s. So one we put out for lease. It was leased by a Bulgarian company called Jez out of Sofia in Bulgaria. And they were training their pilots in Toulouse, but what they needed was line training for their pilots. So they did the initial endorsement in Toulouse of type rating, and they asked us if we could send instructors from Air Niugini to train these Bulgarian pilots. So 4 of us went up, myself, Leko, Jeff McDonald, and Bob Braithwaite, 2 Australians. 4 of us went to Sofia. We were there for about 7 weeks, I think. We were training pilots to fly from Sofia to Dubai to Singapore and return, and then from Sofia to Ottawa in Canada to JFK, New York, and back to Sofia. Very interesting phase in my career. And I was going through Dubai on a layover on the way to Singapore with the Bulgarian crew. And believe it or not, it was at the bar in the hotel. There was only one time in the bar. I never wasted, man. Trust me. I'm the only other person at this bar. He came across, hello, Granger. Hello, what are you doing here? I didn't know my name. And he asked me what I was doing there. I told him I was training these Bulgarians on 310. And he said he was a 310 instructor as well. He said, have you heard of a company called Emirates? I said, no, I'd nobody heard of Emirates. And the Gulf War was on at the time. That was my dog. The Gulf War was on at the time. That was 1991. So Gulf War started and ended in, I think, February, March of 91. This was in July or August of 91. And I said, nobody heard of Emirates. But they were starting an airline. He asked me if I was interested. So next day I rang up the chief pilot and I got an interview. And I ended up, I won't go to the full stories there, but I ended up bringing my wife and kids up to Dubai to check the place out. And then I went for interview in Frankfurt, Germany in October, I think it was, after I returned to PNG. And I got the job, and I started with Emirates on December 2nd, 1991. So I'd done 13 years in Air Niugini. I went to Emirates. And I joined for the fifth. They had 4 airplanes and only 100 pilots. At the time, Air Niugini had something like 15 airplanes and almost 200 pilots. It was much bigger than Air Niugini was much bigger than Emirates. But I joined for the 5th airplane, so we got the 5th airplane in. I worked for Emirates from 1991 to 2006, about almost 15 years, or 15 years I think it was. And during that time, I was an instructor the whole time on the Airbus fleet simulator, and taught many pilots. I was the chief pilot from 2003 to 2006, chief pilot of the Airbus fleet. I was there in 1998. Oh yeah, the other thing about Emirates, from 91 to 98, I used to come home every year to PNG and tell the guys, come have a look, check it out. Nobody came to Dubai, not one person. Until 1997, my brother said, okay, Tico, he said, I'll come and have a look. So he came out to check out, and he was overwhelmed. He said, man, can I get a job here? So I pulled a few strings, talked to some people. Next thing, Tico was flying, joined us in 1998. And then at the same time, Lachlan Sabome from Bena, from Jiwaka, and James Makop from Hagen. So we were the 4 pilots that were based there. And so I did the 1998, the A330, 340 was introduced in the Emirates. I was on the project team, introduced the A330 in the Emirates. Very hard project, hard work. We got that through the gate, and then I became the chief pilot in the fleet. And in 2005, Emirates decided to buy the 380s. So we made a decision to buy 56 A380s. So I was the chief pilot at the time. We went through this process, and Air Show 2005, we asked for a 380 to come out to the Air Show in Dubai in full Emirates colors, which Airbus did. And the Emirates pilots would be the first commercial pilots in the world to fly the 380. It was not even certified at the time. The aircraft became certified in 2008, but this was 2005 when we had the MSN-4, the 4th aircraft that we manufactured, came out to Dubai. They gave 8 of us Emirates pilots a chance to go out and do circuits in the aircraft at a place called Ras Al Khaimah. And they wanted feedback from the pilots on the handling characteristics of the 380. And most of us were heavy jet captains. We're all instructors on either 777 or the 330, 340. We were able to give them feedback on what we thought, what they needed to refine as far as the flight controls systems go in maneuvering the 380, which helped them to put some input in, because all the guys that were flying it at the time were test pilots only, and they hadn't had any commercial pilots fly. That was quite a nice experience. In 2005, I resigned from Emirates in 2006. Etihad called me up. Etihad was a new company starting up in Abu Dhabi, which was owned by the government of Abu Dhabi, and they called Dubai the international airline of the UAE, but Etihad is the national airline of the UAE. National means it's owned by the government. The international means it's a private enterprise. So Emirates is a private enterprise owned by the Maktoum family in Dubai, but Etihad is owned by the Abu Dhabi government, which is the ruling government of the UAE, and the national airline. I went there as a VP for flight operations, which I did for 3 years. And they were just starting up at the time. They had about 10 aircraft in up to 3 years. And I worked for Etihad, flew the 330, 340. I was also, Etihad during the later years in 2013, bought out, controlling shares in about 5 or 6 major airlines in the world, including Alitalia, Air Berlin, Jet Airways in India, Seychelles, and a few other companies which I lost track of. The company that they assigned me, they asked me to go back into management, and I was in Seychelles with the management team for 3 years as the COO, and also as a 330 flight captain. I was training all the pilots on 330 at the time. We had 2 A330s, 2 A320s, and 5 Twin Otters in Seychelles. I worked there for 3 years. It reminded me a lot of Rabaul. I felt like I was back in Rabaul again from my youth. Went back to did 3 years there. 2016, went back to Abu Dhabi. Flew the 330, 340. Then they offered me I'd go on a 380 as a captain, or as a line pilot, or to go on to the Boeing. But they offered overseas basings. So 2017, I took the overseas basing and started moving my family. We moved my family down to Sydney in 2019, and I was commuting to fly the 777-300, which is the beautiful airplane, the Boeing. And I did that till 2022. I flew all through COVID on the cargo fleet, on the 777. And then 2022, I was getting a bit tired, so I retired, basically. I was 63, and I retired from flying Etihad. And then 2023, I got a call. I was living in Sydney with my family. 2023, I got a call from Air Niugini if I could come up and assist with the introduction of the 220 coming in, and which I very willingly took up. So I came to Air Niugini in March of 2023, and as a consultant, then became the COO, and did that till about July of 2024, when the flying opportunity came up to go back and fly. So I said I'll take that, because I can get home more often, and I enjoy the flying. So I'm now did my 737 rating course in Brisbane with Air Niugini, and I'm now flying the 737. I do domestic only, Lae, Kavieng, and Manus, and Gurney now. I do the Lae flight every morning at 100, 101. I call it the Asasumba Express. So, yeah, but loving it to be back. One good thing that I've seen since I've been back, I was away for 32 years. Flew all over the world, and the Emirates operation, Etihad operation is a global operation, 24-hour operation. We fly in all kinds of weather, snow, dust storms, everything. Good education, very revealing, extremely professional. A bit different to what Air Niugini does. Air Niugini's challenges are of a different variety, and the pilots here are definitely some of the best in the world. I've flown with pilots all over the world. I find the Air Niugini pilots, because they have to be more resourceful and have to, they work in a very challenging environment. I take my hat off to the Air Niugini pilots, now that I am actually embedded with them, flying every day myself. A lot of the supports we had when I was flying Fokkers and Dash 7s back in the late 80s is not here, really. The outstation weather reporting, the runway lighting systems. There's no lights anymore anywhere in the country. Radars come in. There's good radar, but the other services, the airport services, the RFF facilities, they just don't seem to be there. Nav aids, and it's. I don't know what the solution is. I have some ideas what the solutions are, but there seems to be a lot more bureaucracy that's been brought into trying to run an airline here. A lot of maybe we've got different layers of more paperwork required, more approvals, and this kind of stuff that's actually taken away. I don't know if it's made it safer or not safer. It's hard to say, because it's put a lot of the onus back on the pilots. So the pilots have to make a call every time they go flying. I take my hat off to the Fokker guys, especially, and the Dash 8 guys. They're flying. They're out there making decisions all the time that I don't think we have to make when I was flying in the days I was here. But I love it. the aviation PNG is still probably still the best in the world. Like I said, the pilots here now seem to be more. The PNG pilots that I fly with a lot of national pilots. They seem to be more attuned to what's going on. There's more information available with the internet. They seem to be smarter than I think we were when I was that age, for sure. They're more aviation oriented. They're more well traveled, which is good. And we've got this A380 coming, so they'll need that resource to be able to fly the 220. It's a fantastic airplane. It's right for the country, but we do need to get the airports and facilities are still way behind, to be honest. We need to get more approaches, RNAV approaches put in. Every place that Air Niugini goes should have runway lights. Every place. There's just no excuse for it not having it. That gives pilots a place to go and something goes wrong at night, and it can widen our operation, which we are now restricted daylight hours only, and the PNG people are missing out because we can't fly at night domestically. Runway need to be expanded. A lot of things can be done, but the flying is still the best, one of the best in the world. The pilots young pilots that are coming up here are still are good quality, high quality, and they are marketable. They can probably go anywhere in the world if they wanted to. I've flown we had almost 100 nationalities in the cockpits in Emirates and Etihad from all over the world. Every South American country, every African country, just about, as flying there, and we can stand up to it. Any pilot will be able to go in there and hold their own. So I'm really proud of the quality of the Air Niugini pilot that's flying here at the moment, both expat and national, considering the challenges. I'm a bit sad about the rural side of things. We're talking about how when Talair had the Gov Charter, and now there's nothing happening in the rural. And to me, that's what's driving your urban drift. People are coming to town because they can educate their kids in the cities in Moresby or Ley. They can have better health in Moresby or Ley. Whereas before, we took that to them. We had good aid posts. We had good teaching facilities. Teachers were paid, and there were lots of good things happening in the villages. So you didn't have to come to town for that. You could actually stay in your village or in your province and get it at the provincial health centers. I think that's a significant step backwards to what it was when I was. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people that were there when Talair was doing that aren't alive anymore, or aren't in positions where they can make decisions because they weren't aware. That nobody here is. When I tell them, they think it's a story, but it was a fact of life because it's another era, and we never brought it forward. So that's those services, that whole thing sort of disappeared. It just got lost in development, I guess, if you wish. But in fact, it was a step backwards. And now when you talk about that, people say, "Oh, that's a good idea." Well, it's not my idea. It was done 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And had it been continued, had we kept going, I think it would have many of the problems we have now would not be here because people would have stayed back in the village and thrived. They would have been successful. They would have been educated. They'd be healthy. They would have got their businesses thriving, and so that would have helped the country as a whole. But I think that letting Talair go and losing that rural coverage, rural footprint that we had, has been detrimental to the country as a whole. But man, what a great country to fly airplanes! Oh, I love it, and I'm so grateful to Air Niugini for giving me my career in the first place, and then for helping me wrap it up. Now that my career is I'll retire soon. Hopefully, I can do some simulator on the 220 or 787 or something, and that my career began and ended in Air Niugini has been a true blessing, and I'm really thankful to God for that chance and for the opportunity to come back and give something back. But any questions on that? Any questions on them?
Captain, as a Papua New Guinea, what's it like flying small Cessna 206s with Talair in the mountains of Papua New Guinea to like the biggest airplanes in the world? Well, in the United Arab Emirates.
I mean, at the time, when you go mad, when I flew Cessna 206 on the Islander and that in Talair, that was the biggest airplane I had flown at the time. And I was chuffed. Every step had been a step forward. And I think the experience I got from flying in the highlands and in the bush of PNG helped me. I'm flying when you're over in flying the big aircraft, 330s, 340s, 777s. You still use the basic instincts that you develop when you're a small, younger pilot. And yeah, it was fantastic. It was nice to carry the flag of PNG. I remember I sent articles to you and a few other people when we were doing achievements. My son is now over there flying the 380. My brother flew the 380 for 10 years. We are very proud Papua New Guineans, and we are proud to wave the flag and to show people that we are not. I mean, the media, the world media, doesn't give us a good picture of what's happening in PNG. And I'm so happy to be part of the other side that's waving the flag for in a good way, what Papua New Guineans can do. And I think a lot of Papua New Guineans, if they went out, they could do this. And a lot of Papua New Guineans are out in the world in different industries, in the oil industry. You run into some crazy people. You run into a chef. There was a cook that was in Russia, and that was Papua New Guinean, and carrying the PNG flag. We need to get more people out there to show them that we are a nation of talent, and we have people who can make it in the world. But yeah, fantastic, Manu, fantastic opportunity.
What are some of your best memories of Talair?
Talair, oh my goodness. Well, I was young and single, so some of the memories I can't really put up here. But it was just a freedom. Talair, they were zero paperwork. Everything was just on the fly. I remember one of the way they controlled pilot hours was they didn't fly on Sundays. They would say you fly from Monday to Saturday, everybody has Sunday off. We didn't sell a ticket. There was no aircraft supposed to fly on Sunday because that's your day off. So everybody was legal to start on Monday again. We never had issues with I'm running out of hours or I need to have a day off here no, everybody had Sunday off. But Sunday, there were more Talair planes flying than there was during the normal day. They used to let us take the planes on what we used to call, staff charters. And when I was living in Hoskins, I used to take the Beach Baron up to Witu Island to my friend Dickie Doyle, spend the weekend there fishing, come back on Sunday afternoon. And all over the freedom that you had when you were young pilots in Talair, I don't know if you can do it today, probably not, was amazing. And it was you were just carefree. And yeah, I had so many good experiences in Talair, Malu. I didn't realize we were doing such a big thing for the country at the time. But it was just the freedom of flying through PNG. You could divert anywhere. We had stations all over the place. We had every main station like Hagen, Ley, Madang, Goroka had food rooms. You land and there'd be a kitchen there where you could have lunch and breakfast and dinner. Yeah, it was good. Good days, good old days.
You also talk about the decline in rural aviation.
Yeah. Well, not so much the aviation. It's I think that we need to focus to get our rural aviation back. We need to help the companies. We need to promote it so the companies can thrive. It's very difficult to thrive at the moment. I see, and those small companies that are trying to make a living are finding it difficult. I know we're focusing on the airports. We can get the airport infrastructure up and running, but it's no use having those airports up and running if the operators cannot fly there and cannot make any money from it. They need to have a commercial interest to go to an airport, because they're the ones that are going to actually bring the community and use that airport. So if we do airports without getting the operators involved, I think it's probably not a very good idea. If we should be talking with the operators, and unfortunately we don't have a full countrywide operator like Talair was. All our operators now are just regional. You have, I think, Tropicair out of here, North Coast out of Ley and Madang, and a few other ones. The missions are quite big, but nobody will come up here and start an airline if the airports where they want to go are closed, and then they do a commercial study, and we need to work with them. Say, which airports do you want open? What do you need to make your company successful? And we work with the operator. Once the operator becomes successful, he will then buy more aircraft, and he will then slowly expand his business. He's going to make money, and then from that we'll start bringing development to the country. Otherwise, we've imploded. We've gone backwards. We've shrunk. The general aviation industry in PNG has shrunk quite a lot since I was here, and yet nothing has replaced it. It hasn't been replaced by any roads. There's no railroads. There's nothing here that replaced the shrinking of the bush flying operation at the rural airports. So that is something that really probably needs to be focused on, to try and find a solution to get the rural business government services to the rural areas, which will then provide a place for people to stay and thrive, and that'll stop the urban drift. It's a big problem that I don't know what the answers are.
What are your thoughts of the last 50 years, and how do you see the next 50?
The last 50 years for aviation PNG. Well, what I can say is, I don't think the requirement for aviation will change that much. It'll be a big need for it. Even if they get roads put in between here and the northern side of the country, even if they put major highways through, it'll still take you at least a day, maybe 2 days to drive from here to Lae, 3 days. So there will always be a need for aviation in Papua New Guinea. And the last 50 years has shown it. Places like Rabaul, you can go by ship too, but it just takes too long. So the aviation sector needs to be really looked at as a long-term. It's here forever. It's going to be here forever in PNG. Most other countries, they develop transport infrastructure, whether it's through roads or railroads, etc., so that the aviation becomes an option. I mean, Australia, you can if you want to. You can go by train to Melbourne from Sydney to Brisbane. You can drive on a freeway, multi-lane freeway the whole way. It's time that's the issue. But in PNG, we don't have that choice. In Australia, the only people that fly are the one that can afford it for starters, but also if the time is an issue. In Papua New Guinea, we don't have that choice. We only have one choice. We have to fly. And I think that's going to be here for the next 50 years. So we need to put infrastructure in, and we need to look at when we develop our airports, when we develop our airlines, or especially when we develop the laws for a lot of these GA operators, the bush operators, we need to build it in mind. We need to develop these rules and these laws within mind that they're here for the long term, and we need them for the long term. We won't be able to replace them with any other form of transport. And I think we started after independence with that in mind. We had some really good ideas, and they were planning forward with like long term, but somewhere we dropped the ball, and we've sort of in some areas we've overcomplicated things. So it's now and the infrastructure, like I said, to support jet operation of the 737, the infrastructure has actually gone backwards. The rural airports are now not serviced anymore, and so we've lost the vision. We need to get back to the vision we had when we got independence, where I think the vision at the time was that we were building an airlines, the aviation structure in the country that was going to last for a long time during Independence Day. Somewhere we lost the ball, and I believe the aviation sector will still be here in 50 years' time with the same needs. One thing I found out is when I was growing up, most of us were pure from the province we were born. I'm pure Milne Bay because my mom and dad are Milne Bay. Most people were, pure Morabi because the mom and dad are Morabi, or pure West New Britain because mom and dad from Hoskins. But now the population is all mixed. So we have relatives from 2 different parts or 3 or 4 different parts of the country. So people are, mixed Milne Bay and Wewak, Sepik or something. So the need for travel is increasing. People have relatives all over the place. So we'll find that our generation of today, they have a requirement for travel, but the only way they can still travel is by plane. There's no other transport, ship or road or rail that has been built or will be built in the next 50 years to replace airplanes. So we need to look at the aviation industry, make the laws, and with that in mind, it's going to be here for 50 years. And we used to build airstrips that are long and big, and I don't know, like Nadzap, for example. Moving out of Leh to Nadzap was a good vision. I mean, it was a bit inconvenient for the people living in Leh, but at least we have an airport now that can go for 50 years, and we can expand it if we need it for bigger airplanes. And maybe that needs to be done in places like Madang and Wewak. Maybe just find another place and expand the runways, put in runway lights, put in a tower. That'll be there for 50 years. So that's the next 50 years. We will still need airplanes as much as we need them today, maybe even more, because the population base is going to get even more. So that's why I reckon it's for any young people you want to get into an industry that's going to be around for 50 years, get into aviation, because it's going to be here.
Tell us about your family in flying as well.
My flying family is, of course, my younger brother, who learned to fly through the military. Tim, his real name's Tim. He finished Sagari, and then he went to the military as to officers training as an army officer, and graduated as a second lieutenant in IGAM, and then was selected for flying and went to Point Cook. He can tell you more about that himself, but he did 11 years in the military as a military pilot, and then joined Air Niugini. I think he flew the Dash 8. He was on the Fokker 28 as a co-pilot, and then became a Dash 8 captain, and then of course came to Emirates. So I got him in Emirates. And he started on the 310 in Emirates. We did 2 or 3 years on that. Then he came on the 330. He was a captain on the 330. I was privileged to do some of his training. Actually, I trained him on the 330 as his captain. I then left, went to Etihad, and he did his course on the 380, I think in 2010, and flew it for 10 years. Yeah, I think he flew 380 for 10 years. But yeah, very, very proud of what he's achieved. He's done very, very well. He's very well liked. He's a very likable character. When COVID hit, he came back home, and he's now working for Air Niugini, not as a pilot. He's in the training department, running the training department. But I think he's just done his 220 course on the A220. So we'll probably fly that when the aircraft comes in later on September of 2025. My son, Nigel, I took him to Dubai when he was 7 years old. He did all his education in Dubai, finished year 12. And then when we were actually initially, I sent him to flying school in America, to Embry-Riddle in Prescott, Arizona. But that happened to be 2001. And September 9, 2001, there was a big attack on the World Trade Center, and all the students from Arab countries got their visas canceled, including him. So he got sent back to Dubai. I then sent him to Brisbane at Royal Archerfield Aero Club, Royal Queenstown Aero Club, and he did his license there. He then came and flew in Papua New Guinea with Milne Airways for 18 months, lived 6 months in Porgera and Kairik, and is now. Then he came back to Abu Dhabi to me after the 18 months here with his new wife, Kristen. He then got a job in Air Arabia. Did 4 or 5 years of first officer on the 320 in Air Arabia. Joined Etihad. I got to fly with him as my co-pilot in 2013.
I remember I wrote the story on that for the National.
Yeah, before I went to Seychelles, and
how was it like to be alongside your son?
Mate, even till today, that's the best experience, my best flying experience ever. Even till today, and everything I've done, to be able to fly with your son.
Can you just tell us a bit about that flight? Yeah.
Well, it was just a flight. It was a 330 flight, and it was my last flight with Etihad before I went down to Air Seychelles to pick up the COO job. And they're actually, there's a lot of father-son teams, but they prefer you don't fly together in case of an accident.
Right.
So I asked if I could push for permission. They gave me permission to fly with him to Brussels. So we did Abu Dhabi, Brussels, spent 24 hours on the ground, and came back the next day. Yeah, it was very surreal, very, very nice to thinking that, I watched him being born in Mosby General Hospital.
Right.
20, 30, 40, 30 years ago, and here he was flying with him. So it was good. We came back, and my brother and team had organized a little celebration. So we came back and had a bit of a get together in Abu Dhabi.
Right.
But yeah, very proud moment for the family. Very proud moment for Nigel and myself.
Right.
Very grateful to God for giving us the privilege, and of course Etihad for giving us the privilege to fly together. And still until today, the most proudest moment of my flying career. Yeah, Nigel's became a 380 captain in June last year, 2023.
Wow.
He's not enough. He was flying a 330, 320 as a captain for about 5 or 6 years. Then Nigel's on 380.
Right.
So as I was saying earlier, there's only 4 Papua New Guineans who have ever flown the 380.
Right.
I was the first. Tika was second.
Right.
And then Lachlan Sabame from Mena
Right.
was third, and now Nigel. So we're very happy to hold that as part of our legacy.
Congratulations. Anything else you want to say?
No, mate. I'm just so thankful to be back flying in Air Niugini. I want to thank Air Niugini. I wear this with pride. I started with Air Niugini 1978, and I'm with Air Niugini now. And I think Air Niugini is a great company. I love Air Niugini. I want to see it succeed. I hope there's 220 coming September, next year? Oh, almost tomorrow's next year, isn't it?
Yeah.
31st today. So I hope that I want to be part of it to make it successful. It'll be a great step for Air Niugini to move forward with that. And I'm so proud of what they've achieved up to date. And I just, any young pilots out there, any young guys want to become pilots, we have a cadet system going. Just come in. We need more Papua New Guinea pilots. We can do it. We are internationally recognized. I know I have faith, and I'm very proud of what we've produced to date. All the young cadets are doing very well. I'm flying with a lot of them now, all excellent pilots. So get more guys in and girls. We need more pilots from Papua New Guinea. So yeah, thanks to Air Niugini